so welcome to the very first presentation of the Obscure History School. And today we're just going to start by talking about leadership and what it means to be a leader and how to be a leader, which is something that's going to be really important as we go along with this podcast. So here's a few goals of this program. Obviously, I'm sure everyone will have personal goals like personal growth, but here's like the general gist that we're going for. We want to have a safe space. We want to learn how to be vulnerable and empathetic. And I just want to clarify that, like, when I say this, I also mean that we want a judgment-free zone. Like, I don't want anyone to be scared that if they say something wrong, everyone's going to attack them or something. I want everyone to know that, like, whatever you say, it's going to be in a safe space. And the goal is to educate and not, like, get angry. And finally, we all want to grow and learn as individuals. So we already did the icebreakers, and I'm sure some of you guys saw my dog already, but I have two dogs, Taco and Burrito, and that's just a fun fact I like to share. So here is the presentation on how to become a leader. So there's three table of contents here. The first part we're going to talk about is why leadership is important. The second is where it can be applied. And the third is how to become a better leader. So first, why is leadership important? I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard a lot of teachers or people talk constantly about leadership, but well, why is it so important? First off, it fosters collaboration. So it provides a lot of guidance, inspiration, and motivation when like working towards achieving a common goal. And it kind of rallies people towards a common cause. And this obviously is helpful because it increases chances of success. It also helps empowers others. When you're a good leader, you kind of know how to encourage and inspire others. So you kind of let individuals take ownership and work together. And leadership stems from empathy and understanding one another and helps people build confidence in themselves. Leadership will also help you empower yourself. If it challenges your own thinking and it kind of makes you think of how other people are feeling or standing in someone else's shoes, you practice vital soft skills like teamwork and communication, and you can kind of learn where your areas of vulnerability and weakness are and kind of work to improve them. So if anyone else has any other reasons why leadership is important, feel free to share. Without leadership, much of the world's achievements would not have occurred. As you can see, a lot of the modern technology that we have or a lot of the systems that we currently have in place probably would not have occurred if there wasn't good leadership involved. Because in order to bring about major change, you kind of have to know how to rally people towards a cause. You have to get people to care about a cause. Because a lot of people see change as a scary thing. Like a lot of people don't want to change and they just want to kind of stay stuck where they are. And leadership kind of helps people move forward and pushes people to become better and seek a better reality. So the second thing that we're going to talk about in this presentation is where it can be applied. So leadership can be applied anywhere. It's evident in everyday life, no matter where you go, because leadership is so broad and it brings direction, motivation, and guides people towards a goal, you can apply it anywhere. So a good example would probably be on a sports team. If you're someone who plays a sport and you find that your team has gone through a rough game and you're losing by a lot, well, like good leaders would probably find a way to kind of reel the team back in, help them focus, and calm everyone down. Or it can be in a school project. I'm sure everyone's had that experience where a group member may not be pulling their weight, and a good leader will learn how to kind of overcome these obstacles and move around them so that the project can still be successful. So here are a few examples of leaders that I pulled that I think will be very motivational and inspirational, what they were able to achieve and how they showed leadership. So Fred was actually fought against the Japanese American concentration camps. For reference, that's going to be something that we dive deeper into later, but just to give a very quick short summary, it's during World War II when America created Japanese American concentration camps because they feared that Japanese Americans may have been spies or working for the Japanese government. So essentially, he refused to comply with the executive order, which demanded that all Japanese Americans be moved to these camps immediately and they drop everything. And he was actually convicted for violating military orders, although this conviction was later revoked. And he left a really strong, lasting impact because he said that as long as my record stands in federal court, any American citizen can be held in prison or concentration camps without a trial or a hearing. And this was very important because obviously one of our constitutional rights is that everyone has the right to basic human rights, such as a fair trial. And he was pretty much being a leader and standing up against what he thought was wrong. And it very obviously apparently was wrong, but a lot of people were too scared to speak up in fear of punishment or retaliation, but he wasn't. So he actually received the Presidential Medal of Honor, and there's actually a specific day that honors him as an activist. And as you can see on the right, he had a huge impact on the world. Next, we have another Japanese American, and he was actually born into one of the camps. So it had a very large impact on him, and it kind of left a huge scar on him. So after coming out of the camps, he decided that he would become an advocate for a multitude of issues, including anti-war, civil rights, and gay liberation movements. So he actually founded the Gay Liberation Front in Philadelphia and the delegate of Black Panther's Party's Revolutionary People Constitutional Convention. So essentially what he did was he saw a struggle that he had, and he was aware that a lot of other people had. He kind of rallied people together, and he moved towards a better reality by showing leadership and creating a bunch of new organizations and foundations to continue to push for a better world. Obviously, he was fighting for gay rights, he was fighting against wars, and he was fighting for civil rights, as he saw that a lot of rights had been stripped away during the Japanese American concentration camps. And oftentimes when leaders see there's a huge struggle in community, they tend to step up. And when AIDS devastated the gay community, he created the Critical Path Project, where it's a 24-hour telephone hotline, and it gave a lot of free services for people living with AIDS and HIV. So essentially, he was a leader in that he saw the struggles or imperfections of the world, and he created a bunch of different organizations and clubs to help fix that. But of course, one thing I really want to emphasize is that leadership isn't just found in like older people. Leadership can often also be found in kids. So you can be a leader no matter how old you are. If you see an issue that you want to fix, or you see something that you want to change in the world, you can start no matter like what age you are or who you are. So this is a good example of a leadership in a kid. So Ashlyn, she was only 13 when COVID-19 hit. And obviously COVID-19 had a huge impact on the Asian American community. After COVID-19 hit, there was a huge spike in anti-Asian movements because of the fact that a lot of people blamed COVID-19 on Asians, specifically East Asians like Chinese, although as we know, that's not true. But because Ashlyn saw this, she dedicated herself to fighting the pandemic and ongoing racism towards Asian communities. So she was involved in a lot of rallies, organized a few herself, and she stood with a lot of survivors of anti-Asian violence. So she actually sewed 1,000 face masks for frontline workers, and she won the People's Hero Award for being brave in such a difficult time. And here we have Stephanie Hu, who also during COVID-19, at only 16, actually decided to fight back against the anti-Asian hate that was rising. So in reflection of the xenophobia and violence towards the AAPI community, she founded the Dear Asian Youth, and it pretty much hosts podcast campaigns and writing for and by AAPI youth. It has a lot of successful media platforms, and it provides educational resources and advocacy. And she's helped to inspire a lot of people, and a lot of actions have occurred because of this AAPI-led initiative. So my point to reiterate is that you can be a leader no matter how old you are or who you are. If you see something you want to change, then there's nothing stopping you from stepping up and being the leader to change it. So also, I did want to say this, leadership comes in a lot of forms, and what I just showed is like really daunting, right? Because it's like these huge initiatives and organizations, and it may seem really hard to reach, but I just want to say that you don't have to change the whole world to be a leader. You can, but you don't have to. It comes in a lot of forms, and you can start by being a leader by just implementing it into your everyday lives in smaller everyday activities, such as a school leader on your sports team. So you can be a leader no matter where you are, and you don't have to change the world, but if you want to, you can. So here's just a few more examples of leadership in everyday life. You can volunteer with a nonprofit or something you're passionate about. Volunteering is a great way to show leadership because you're showing initiative and you're helping a problem that you feel really passionate about. Leadership also can be standing up to bullies and advocating for others. If you see that someone may be getting picked on, helping stand up for them is something that's really important, and it's a great quality to have in a leader because leaders oftentimes have to be brave because not everyone might agree with what you're pushing for. Helping someone else in a task they may be struggling in. If you see someone that may be struggling in their math homework or their history homework and you step in to help them, that's also leadership because you're going and you're kind of helping others. And leadership is really found in a lot of tasks that you may not think so. Communicating with others about how you feel is a great way to show leadership. A lot of people are scared of communicating because they're scared of being vulnerable or they're scared of how other people will react to their feelings. So just being able to communicate effectively with someone is showing great leadership and showing that you can step up. And there are an infinite number of examples. So even in tasks you may consider mundane. So don't just take these few examples. I'm sure that all of you show leadership in your lives every day at every moment. So here's just one quick exercise. If everyone could just take a piece of paper and a pencil and just jot down a quick list of ways you've been a leader in the past week or so. And just remember, it can be anything, even if it seems really small. All right, is everyone ready? And does anyone want to share something? Maybe everyone can go around and just share one or two things that they wrote down that they think is the most important.
I have so much to share, but I'll let everyone else go first because mine is long.
Okay, I can go first. So I guess this past week, I had an English assignment assigned as a group project. So in my group, I guess I was a leader by delegating work and making sure that I got my part done like well before the deadline.
Okay, Jack, do you want to pick someone else and we can just keep doing it like that?
Oh yeah, sure. Um, how about Amani?
Ooh, Amani.
So I wrote down that I was in physics one day and people needed help with their lab, so I kind of like got everyone together and collectively helped everyone. So yeah, that's what I wrote. Al, you can go.
Me?
Mhm.
Maybe you should pick Maeve. I'll go
Okay,
last.
maybe you can go.
Okay, first I want to apologize because I got kicked out of the meeting, so I might have missed like 5 or 10 minutes, and I only wrote down one thing. But today we were learning about Thomas Paine's Common Sense, and we had to do a group project, so I helped my team write down the answers.
Oh, Maeve, can you pick somebody to go after?
How about Rayshawn?
Oh, where's Rayshawn?
Yeah, Rayshawn had to leave.
Oh, Rayshawn. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that mean
Yeah.
that you're next?
Yeah, that means I'm next. So I at my full-time job, I'm the head of a department, and we recently had some staffing changes, and there were some people that were very unhappy with those staffing changes. So I was very close with the people that were unhappy. So I kind of volunteered to talk with them and bring their concerns to upper management, um, as a way to kind of ease their concerns a little bit.
Hmm.
So that's a way I felt like a leader recently.
Who's next?
Oh, I think it's you, right, Al? I think.
Did Amy go? But I don't think Amy went.
Oh, Amy, of course.
Yeah, so today in physics we had this like lab and like everyone was really confused for some reason. Like the teacher just didn't explain it well. So me and my partner, after we figured it out, we went to each and every other group and we helped them learn how to use the pulley and solve the problem. Al, do you want to go?
Okay. So guys, I had a really dramatic week. Like Jonathan's dad passed away, and on top of that, my mother was flying in from Korea and my aunt was supposed to pick her up, but the snowstorm was her excuse for bailing out. So then I had to go pick her up, but my baby suddenly had a fever, so I had to go to the city with a sick child in a cab. I was like helping Jack with the flyers at like 11:30 p.m. trying to get all of this like flyer stuff done so I could get my mom from the airport and then go to urgent care afterwards. But I felt like I had so much stuff going on, but I got it all done. And then I felt like a champ.
That's
That
very
was my leadership
I
moment.
like it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I hope everyone sees now that like obviously you're a leader in a lot of different ways, no matter where you are, whether it's at school, whether it's at home. So now it's just on to the last section on how to become a better leader. And I'm sure everyone here is already a great leader, but you can always learn and become better and keep pushing yourself to be better. So 7.88 billion people are leaders. And the reason I'm using that number is because that's the current population of the world.
It's
Because
not 8 billion? I thought
Oh.
it was over 8 billion.
but maybe it is, like maybe mine's outdated. But I just wanted to say that I think everyone is a leader innately. I think everyone's born to be a leader. And I think it's just kind of how you express it. So since everyone's a leader already, I think everyone should give themselves a pat on the back. Studies have shown that identifying yourself as a leader is the first step to becoming one, and it actually helps with confidence and other skills that a lot of leaders have. So I think everyone should know to think of themselves as a leader. So although we just finished exercise 1, I think exercise 2, this one's faster. It's just, I want everyone to jot down a quick list of traits that you associate with a leader.
Oh, and by the way, Amani says that she has a viola class, or she had to hop, but
Great.
she's gonna be back in the next one and change her class time.
All right, so I think everyone can share a few and I can start. The first trait I think of when I think of leadership happens to be flexibility because, well, obviously you can have a perfectly planned schedule. Of course, like life, something's just going to go wrong eventually. And I think that it's really important that leaders are flexible and they know how to work around issues instead of just getting stuck behind one block. Jack, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, the first trait that popped up when I think of a leader is someone who can be confident and strong in their final decision. I think like getting a leader is someone who can work well in a group and who can take consideration from everyone's opinions. But after a final decision is met, I think that a leader is someone who can be very confident that they're making the right decision so that they can like do everything that they can. How about Maeve? You can go next.
I think a good leader is reliable because when everything goes wrong, they have to be able to help everybody and take control of the situation again. How about Lewis?
I think when I think leader, I like to think of somebody that's even keeled, somebody that's going to be able to take the highs and take the lows, and kind of be steady for the people that rely on them to be steady. I think that's one of the biggest traits I think of when I think of a leader. How about Amani?
Oh, Amani had to hop.
Oh,
It's just me.
oh, how about Alice then?
You know, I was actually gonna say reliable, but Maeve said it. So I'm going to go to my next thing, which is vulnerable. And
Oh.
yeah, I feel like a lot of people think that leaders have to be strong. And I feel like actually the best leaders are ones who aren't afraid to show their vulnerability and be compassionate.
Yeah, I think that leaders have to have like multiple sides to them. in the sense that like they have to understand when to like be what kind of leader. Like, yeah, like if something goes really wrong, then you may have to be strong and confident and you have to do damage control and try and fix the situation. But if it's something that requires more empathy or more connection with another person, then that leader may have to show more vulnerability. So I think that like based on what kind of situation you are, the traits that you exhibit and express may have to be different. And I think that's what makes like the best leader, someone who can kind of go with the flow and see what requires of them. Because sometimes leaders actually have to step back. Like if you see someone who's also becoming a leader and they're exhibiting leadership traits, then like maybe it's time that you step back and kind of let them lead. So like a good leader also helps other people become leaders, and instead of being the person who's always in control. So here are a few traits that I picked up off what makes a good leader. These are just a few. The list goes on, but like communication, integrity, emotional intelligence, creativity, self-awareness, problem solving, decision making. These are all kind of like the generic ones we think of when we think of, oh, like what makes a good leader. But there's one trait that I really want to emphasize because a lot of people do not think of this when they think of like a leader. So leaders have a lot of roles to play. They have a lot of different hats to wear. They have to inspire, they have to encourage, they have to lead, they have to guide, and they have to be all of these things. But sometimes it's hard to do that, right? Like no one's perfect. You're human. There are going to be situations where you make mistakes, where you do stupid things. So the most important trait that a leader has to have is accountability. Like, remember, like you have to be a reliable, steady person. But if you do make that mistake, you have to know how to kind of take it. And you have to be like, yes, I did make that mistake and I'm going to fix it moving forward. So you have to be accountable. Since we're human, since we make mistakes, I'm sure a lot of us know that like sometimes we say things we don't mean. Sometimes we do things that we didn't think through and there are consequences. And that's okay because we're all still learning, but we have to know how to take responsibility for our actions, and we have to admit and be able to apologize when we're wrong and actually work to actively fix our mistakes. This will help strengthen relationships, build trust, and make you a way better leader. Because like every day you're always growing, but you can only grow if you're able to admit and see your mistakes. So here are a few ways to become a better leader. One way is to reflect, whether it's nightly in a diary or if you just spend a few minutes every day thinking through how your day went. Good leaders oftentimes reflect on their relationships, their priorities, and their goals. This helps leaders work on their own self-awareness and helps leaders work on being accountable for themselves and for others. You also have to learn how to be a good listener. I know that a lot of people think that leaders are always the ones in control, always the ones talking, but a lot of the times leaders are the people who know when to step back and let someone else kind of take the reins. And like I said, leaders wear a lot of roles, so you have to express different traits when like the time is right based on your situation. So you have to be good with empathizing and like connecting with others. You have to be an empathetic person. So being a good active listener is really important because this shows that you appreciate whoever you're talking to and that you have an understanding and a bond. You also want to communicate with others often. Like I said earlier, some people find it really hard to communicate because they see it as like something of being vulnerable or not accountable. But in being able to communicate and being able to be open and honest about your feelings, that's what being a good leader is like really about. And this will really foster trust in relationships and collaboration. Next, you always want to keep an open mind and you always want to keep learning. Like I said, this should be like a safe zone and a non-judgment zone where you're kind of willing to learn and like see different perspectives. And it's really great that you guys are here because that means that you're willing to be educated and you're willing to kind of keep learning and like keep an open mind. So like always make sure that you're not looking down on other people's ideas and trying to incorporate multiple perspectives. Another thing to emphasize here is that you kind of want to stand up for others and yourselves. I know a lot of reasons why bad things happen is because people are too scared to speak out or they're too scared for retaliation. And it's always important that you voice your opinion and how you feel. And it's like, don't be afraid to disagree with someone, right? Like, of course, everyone's different. We all have different perspectives and personalities, and there are things that we may disagree on, and that's totally normal, but you shouldn't try and hide what you're feeling just so that you can seem more agreeable. As long as you're respectful and polite about it, I don't think there's anything wrong with disagreeing about something. We all come from different backgrounds, and that really shapes how we view the world. And if you stand up for others, such as intervening when someone's getting bullied, it builds a stronger community overall. And my final thing is, oftentimes you'll see leaders help to solve a problem. I talked about this in my examples with leaders, but leaders often will see some sort of gap or disparity, and then they'll step up and work to find a solution for that problem. And it helps a lot of people and it aids the community, but it also gives you a chance to problem solve. So overall, there are a lot of different ways to practice being a leader, and I don't want you guys to feel just limited to the ones I've listed. Remember, everyone is already a leader in their own way. So it's an important skill to practice, and it helps society move forward in a positive direction. And it will also help whoever's practicing to be a leader grow and practice their soft skills like collaboration and communicating. So I hope that everyone keeps on working to become a better leader and to keep believing in yourselves, because of course, even if you're learning every day, I'm sure you're all already great leaders. Now, on the side note of that, here are a few extra resources in case anyone is more interested in learning more about certain topics. So one thing that the Bittermelon really teaches is the bystander intervention course, and it pretty much teaches you the 5 Ds of like what happens when there's an escalation and how to de-escalate. So there's direct, distract, delay, delegate, and document. This is a really great course if you want to learn how to like deal with stressful situations and see how to de-escalate really like tense situations. And it's a really important life skill. There's also a lot of different courses and webinars all across the world, if you guys want to go to any of them, that kind of help to create leaders, and a lot of different books that focus on leadership, such as the Student Leadership Practice. And you're already becoming a better leader each and every day, so keep working towards it. And that concludes the first presentation of the Obscure History School.